close your eyes and pull like a dog.
And a new Irish record for Phil Healy, 22.99.
Christy Cooney hands over the Sam Maguire Cup to Graham Canty, Cork All-Ireland champions for the 7th time ever.
Hello and welcome to episode 22 of the Star Sport podcast. My name is Jack McCarran of the Southern Star and I'm joined as always by Star Sport editor Kieran McCarthy. On today's show we'll be joined in the studio by former Cork footballer and Ilen Rovers clubman Diarmuid Duggan to preview this weekend's Super 8's clash between Cork and Dublin in Croke Park. Diarmuid will also chat to us about the state of Cork football in general and how he thinks they'll fare in their first attempt at the Super 8's.
We're also going to be joined by one of Ireland's fastest men when Dara McElhenney stops by. Dara has been in flying form of late and the Glengarriff man now sits on top of the European Under-20 rankings over both the 3,000 metres and 5,000 metres ahead of the European Under-20s this month.
Before all that though, Kieran, you were in Thurles on Saturday night to see Cork overcome Laois to book their place in the last 8 of the All-Ireland Football Championship. Firstly, were you impressed by the performance? And secondly, what do you think has gone right for the panel in recent weeks? There was such doom and gloom just a few months back and now there's nothing but positive vibes around the camp.
First off, Jack, you can't but be impressed by Cork at the moment. They've come a long way from those early rounds of the league when things were desperate, you could, for want of a better word. Against Laois the last day, they scored 2-7 unanswered just before and after half time, 4 points before half time, 2-3 after. Brian Hurley got 2 goals. And they were ruthless then. Ronan McCarthy said after that he thought some of their football was sensational. So maybe when Pat Spillane said in the Sunday game after the Limerick game that Cork were Barcelona, like maybe we were a bit too hard on Pat Spillane, maybe that's why he's paid the big bucks as a pundit. But no, in all seriousness, you can't but be impressed by Cork at the moment, considering the low base where they've come from. Nobody's expecting them to win in All-Ireland because they won't, kind of. Will they get out of the Super 8's group? Very, very, very hard to say. Like, it looks unlikely to be fair to them. They're in with Dublin, Tyrone and Roscommon. But considering where they were, to get to the Super 8's is a great achievement. What's gone right for them? Jesus, that's a $64,000 question. I think over the years, we've always said it, even in this podcast, there's no consistency with the Cork footballers. Good one game, bad the next. Good one half, shite the next. But all of a sudden, they've found consistency, and that consistency is coming through their performances. And their performances, with those performances, they're starting to win games too. Whether it's winning games is leading to performances or the other way around, I'm not too sure. But they've found the consistency there. And it's showing. They're playing good stuff at the moment. They've a fairly settled team, and it's just do you know what? It's a good time to be a Cork football fan, and that's probably the first time we've said that since this podcast started. So a lot of positivity, but a big test to come. But Cork are where they want to be. They're the lowest ranked team in the Super 8s. They're a Division 3 team. Even though Brian Hurley quipped to me after the game the last day, he said, not bad for a Division 3 team like you keep telling us. So, in fairness to the Cork footballers, they're in the last 8. First time there, I think, since 2014. So, kind of, yeah, just it's good.
Well, ahead of Cork's clash with Dublin on Saturday night, we were joined in studio by ex-Cork footballer Diarmuid Duggan.
We're delighted to be joined on the Star Sport podcast by former Cork footballer Diarmuid Duggan of Ilen Rovers fame. Thanks for joining us, Diarmuid.
Thank you, Kieran.
We're here to chat about Cork and the Super 8s. First off, it's fantastic that Cork are in the Super 8s. Did a comprehensive win against Laois in Thurles on Saturday night, and that's booked their place in Group 2. So that's games coming up against Dublin this Saturday night, Tyrone the week after in Croke Park, and then a home game against Roscommon in early August. Some turnaround, Diarmuid, kind of. I just jotted down here, it was February 23rd, Cork lost at home to Meath 2-12 to 1-9. They had 1 point from 4 games. They were bottom of Division 2. Things looked desperate at the time, and I know Cork went on to be relegated later in the league, but something has changed since then. There's a lot more positivity around the footballers right now.
There is, yeah, and I suppose when you think back to that Meath game, that day they played Meath, they were playing very, very defensive style of football. I think they were bringing both their wing forwards back. Even Mark Collins there at one stage, who's one of Cork's probably main forwards now at the moment, he was at one stage in one of those, I can't remember, was it Kildare or Dublin, he was ended up playing as an extra defender.
Yeah.
Kerrigan was another fellow who was coming back another day, you know. So I suppose it probably all stemmed from, I suppose they took 2 big beatings last year in the championship. They were beaten well by Kerry, they were beaten well by Tyrone. And I suppose they probably felt they needed to get the defensive side of the team sorted first.
Yeah.
And that was probably something they were looking at. But obviously, as it turned out, they went too defensive, and you have to have a balance. And I think since then, even since that Meath game that you referenced there, I think since then they've put a more of attacking emphasis on the team, and it's started to pay dividends. So they seem to have got the balance right at the moment, mix it between defensive and an offensive outlook.
Because you actually mentioned Mark Collins there, and Mark did come very, very deep, probably too deep for him in a lot of games, and that's not even this year, but the last couple of years. But they put him inside now with Brian Hurley, his Castlehaven teammate, and the 2 boys are flying inside there. They got 3-12 between them against Laois on Saturday night, and Thurles, kind of like the 2 of them together are dangerous.
Yeah, no, they're absolutely brilliant, and they seem to play well off each other as well. They obviously know each other so well playing at club level, but I mean, Mark is an outstanding player. He's played midfield, he's played in the half-forward line. He's good in the air, he's quick, he's deceptively strong. He doesn't look like he's a big frame, but he's quite strong. And he's a good finisher, so he's a huge threat in there at the moment. And obviously the return to form of Brian Hurley is a huge plus for Cork as well.
Considering where he came from a couple of years back, it looked like it was all over for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And before his injuries, he was, he didn't probably get the accolades he deserved, but he was one of Ireland's top forwards at the time. I think even maybe if he had been getting a little bit more better service, it would have been even better for him. But I mean, he's come through those horrific injuries that have ended careers of other players, and he's really starting to get his pace back, his confidence, and just it seems to be going so well for him at the moment.
Brian has 5 goals in 3 games, and in the 3 championship games so far for Cork against Limerick, Kerry and Laois, they've averaged 26 points a game. I know we've got to take into account Laois and Limerick wouldn't be what you'd kind of you class as kind of top quality kind of tier 1, tier 2 teams, but still, for the confidence of this Cork team, and considering the low base where they've come from, they have made progress.
And I think what you have to admire as well is the ruthlessness of Cork. I mean, there are other teams, they might be happy enough to beat likes of Limerick by 5 or 6 points, but Cork weren't happy with that. Same against Laois, people would have been quite happy with a 7 or 8 point win, but what did they end up winning by 15 or 16 or something, was it? So I mean, you have to admire that, and as you mentioned there, coming from the base that Cork were coming from, it doesn't really matter, because you just play what's in front of you, and Cork are doing that at the moment, and you just can't fault them.
Going into the Super 8, so like I said, it's 3 games against top quality teams, Dublin, Tyrone and Roscommon. How important is it for the development of this Cork team to be able to play the top teams in the country over the next 3-4 weeks?
I think it's crucial. Just the exposure in Croke Park alone is a huge thing, because I think is it about 7 of that team that played against Laois the other night haven't ever played a senior championship game in Croke Park, I think. So that's a huge thing, just that exposure alone in a big stadium in front of a big crowd, televised game and all. So I think just for development over the next year, 2, 3 years, because it takes that. I mean, things don't happen overnight. It's not like a switch you can suddenly be beating Dublin, I think, or any of these big Division 1 teams. But I think in terms of general development, it's absolutely massive that they get exposure to these and build from there. It
was interesting after the game in Thurles on Saturday night, where Rowan McCarthy again mentioned, I suppose Cork are going well the last couple of months, and he again mentioned the challenge games, and a lot has been made about Cork's challenge games before the Munster Championship. How much emphasis can a team, or should a team, put in a challenge game, and how much confidence can they take off?
I think it all depends, first of all, where you're coming from, and the low base that Cork were coming from. I think you have to take every bit of positivity you can from any game, whether it's a training session or whether it's a game. So winning becomes a habit. So whether it's challenge games, league games, or championship games, you develop it bit by bit. And I think it's been crucial to Cork, because the public were down on top of them. They had low confidence within themselves from losing these games, and getting relegated. So I think anytime you can put it up to Dublin, whether it's challenge game or any other games, then I think you can only take confidence from those. So I think it's been very, very important to put that run of games together for Cork.
Like you mentioned there, Cork put it up to Dublin in a challenge game before the Munster Championship, but this Saturday night in Croke Park is going to be a totally different arena to that challenge game. Cork are coming up probably against the greatest football team to ever play the game. To kind of Dublin are chasing 5 in a row. Phenomenal team. Cork have nothing to lose here, have they, Diarmuid?
No, I mean, I suppose unless they get an absolute hammering is the only thing that you don't want, particularly after the progress they've made. But there is a great air of positivity around them at the moment. I think they're not going to beat Dublin. I think the spread is 10 points. So I think if they can keep anything below that would be bonus territory. If they can keep it anywhere 5, 6, 7 points would be a victory in a way for Cork. And then hopefully they could target one of the other 2 games coming up after it. But like Dublin are a different animal, as you mentioned. Teams aren't losing to them year after year for no reason, and no matter what teams throw at them, whether they go defensive or whether they go offensive, Dublin seem to always have the answers. So it'll be a different story for sure. The level of athleticism, pace, finishing, everything from Dublin is just on a different level. But I think Cork can go into it with optimism. I think the public are getting behind Cork, not just in Cork but all over Ireland. And I think people sense that there is something maybe a little bit different, that Cork might have 1 or 2 things that might trouble Dublin at various stages.
I was going to ask you that, kind of, can Cork cause this Dublin team problems? Like we said there, Cork have been scoring for fun. They have 10 goals in 3 games. Is that something that might worry a Dublin team that looks like it'll be missing Johnny Cooper and James McCarthy? I
think so. Because what's interesting about Cork is they seem to have played a couple of different styles in various games, depending as the need arose. They seem to have married the kicking game with the running game at various times. Against Kerry they use more of the running game, where maybe they sense that Kerry were a little bit more open down the centre. But then against Laois and Limerick they mix it up by kicking, and they have some particularly very, very good kickers. Rory is one of the guys who seems to always find Brian Hurley or Mark Collins inside. So I think if they kick against Dublin probably drop Keane O'Sullivan back. But then if Cork are running at them, they're going to have to withdraw Keane O'Sullivan. So it's good to keep them guessing, I think. So maybe it is something that'll just pose a little bit of a difficulty for Dublin, I think, at various stages. And I think another area maybe is, Cork have brought a level of aggression to their game this year that maybe hasn't been seen over the last number of years. I think their wing backs have been a revelation. Liam O'Donovan, Matty Taylor have been absolutely superb. Obviously the front 2 boys that we talked about have been excellent, Mark Collins and Brian Hurley. Midfield has been strong. So I mean there's various areas, and Rory Dean of course, anything that seems to come from Cork seems to come through Rory. So I think there definitely are areas where they can pose problems. Whether there'll be enough to cause them problems at the end of the day, it's a different story, but it is encouraging for sure. Like
I think you kind of said earlier, and I 100% agree. I don't think many people or anyone outside the Cork camp are probably giving them much of a chance against Dublin on Saturday night. But looking the week beyond it against the Tyrone game, is that the game that Cork should be targeting? Because if they can get a result there, and considering Roscommon are coming to Páirc Uí Chaoimh 2 weeks after that, it might give Cork a chance of getting out of the Super 8s. I
think so, because ultimately if they don't beat Roscommon they're probably not going to get out of it. So if they don't beat Tyrone they're not going to get out of it. So if they can target that game, and then with a bit of momentum they could possibly target the Roscommon game again. So for sure that Tyrone game is the vital one after that, after the Dublin game.
As a former Cork footballer, like you, it's probably hurt you to see kind of, I suppose, the bad times in the last couple of years, Cork's steep decline. But what's it like now to see this upsurge in positivity? Even after the game in Thurles the last night, what struck me was the players stayed out on the pitch and they were signing autographs and they were taking pictures. And at one point I saw Brian Hurley taking a picture. He was holding a baby. Just like something like a politician would do. And Rory Dean was signing kids' jerseys and stuff. And just I was thinking, just when was the last time we saw that? Kind of the fans were on the pitch and they were mingling. And even after the Kerry game, and I know they lost the Munster final, they were applauded off the field. They were cheered off the field because of the effort they put in. Like, there has been a change. So as a former footballer yourself, what's that like to kind of to hear and to see that I suppose the public are starting to get behind the Cork team again, but there has been this kind of, they've arrested the decline and things seem to be moving in the right direction.
Yeah, like it's very encouraging. It's very pleasing to see it. Cork football always, I suppose, is a poor relation in Cork. That's no secret. The general public and the fans in Cork always seem to get behind the hurlers, and that's there's nothing the Cork footballers can do about that. They can only continue to try and put in good performances. But it's very pleasing, but I suppose it's a reflection of the performances on the field as well. Ultimately it comes down to that. I suppose, fans of sport in general can be very fickle. As soon as a team starts doing well, they're very quick to follow. But equally so, when a team starts playing poorly, they're very quick to drop them as well. So that's just reality and that's just life. But I mean, it's very pleasing from the point of view of the players, because I think people forget at times the amount of sacrifice and the time and the effort they put into training, and I think you have to ultimately admire these Cork players over the last few years for sticking with it when they were getting incredible abuse at various times, and still they stuck through it, and a lot of those players are still there now. So I think they deserve every bit of credit and every bit of applause and praise they're getting at the moment, and long may it continue, hopefully. From
a West Cork point of view, and we always look after our own down here, it's great to see the likes of Brian Hurley, Rory Dean, kind of Mark Collins, these fellas going well. But at the opposite end of the age scale, Mark White in goal, Liam O'Donovan at wing back, these young fellas, they've really come on and they've taken their chance. Liam especially, he's been a revelation at wing back, like you said earlier.
Yeah, he has, his energy levels are phenomenal. He's just up and down that wing constantly, and when they tackle with intensity and aggression, so they leave absolutely nothing on the field, and it is a joy to watch, and every team goes out saying they're going to bring a level of intensity to things, but they don't always do it, but so far from what we've seen, these Cork defenders have brought that, and the Cork team in general have brought that, and it's been pleasing. And I suppose you mentioned West Cork there. I think whenever Cork teams have been going well, there's always been a number of West Cork players on the team, it's very encouraging now to see some West Cork players on the team, and being some of the main guys on it also. So I think it always bodes well for Cork football when you have a number of them on it.
Before I let you go, Diarmuid, I'm not going to ask you for a prediction for Saturday night, because I think I know what we'd both go for Dublin there, but what can Cork look to get out of the Super 8s the next 3 games? What should they be aiming to take out of the Super 8s?
I suppose at a minimum they want to get 1 win at least, I think, and it's definitely not beyond them, I think. If they could get 2 wins, I presume 2 wins would put them through, wouldn't it?
I would think, yeah.
I think that would be the ultimate target, 2 wins, and you'd probably be looking at Tyrone and Roscommon there. But I mean, Roscommon or Tyrone, either of those are winnable. They really are. If Cork play well on the night, they're definitely winnable. So I think at a minimum to win 1 game and hopefully win 2.
Brilliant. And final question: what do you think it's like in that camp right now? Kind of, you could feel the energy after the game in Thurles the last night. Ronan McCarthy was doing interviews with the media. Next thing, Ian Maguire bounded in, and he was kind of saying big runs at the wheel and stuff. And you could see Brian Hurley. You could see the kind of the joy in his face. And he was talking to some fella from the backroom team, and he was like, next weekend. You could feel the energy and the positivity, and it's like it's a team high in confidence. Like, so what would you like to be in that camp right now this week? Looking forward to a big game.
It would be absolutely brilliant, because I mean, nobody likes training in January, February in the muck and the darkness and the dirt and all that. You play for games, or you train for days out in Croke Park and Páirc Uí Chaoimh and Simple Stadium and all those kind of things. So like when they came into training, whenever they came in, maybe Tuesday night or whenever it was, I mean, you're buzzing to take part, you're buzzing to play, and there's always enthusiasm after a big win like that, and you're looking forward to the next game. And I suppose that's the beauty of these Super 8 games now as well, where even if they lose against Dublin, they have no time to dwell over it. They're straight into the next game again. So it's a brilliant time of the year to be playing football for sure, and that's why it's great to get into these Super 8s.
Hopefully we'll have a positive performance from Cork on Saturday night and in the next couple of weeks against Tyrone and Roscommon to follow. Diarmuid, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Star Sports Podcast. Don't forget to pick up this week's Southern Star, featuring our award-winning sports section that has everything a sports fan in West Cork could want. Available every Thursday in shops across West Cork and online from anywhere in the world. The Southern Star, #1 for sport in West Cork.
Welcome back to the Star Sport Podcast. And Kieran, Dara McElhenney has been in sensational form of late. And I know from sharing a workplace with you, you're pretty excited by what you've seen from him. And before we hear from him, you might just let the listeners know a little bit about the Glengarriff man.
Darragh McElhinney is talented. There's no other way of saying it. He's a middle distance runner from Bantry Athletic Club, and he's been on been on the scene for a good couple of years now. If you go back to the 2016 Olympics, when he was only 15, he was taken out to Rio ahead of those Olympics with Irish pentathletes Arthur Lanigan O'Keefe and
Kilkenny man
and Natalie Coyle of Taylor Park fame, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that kind of shows even back then, like he was 15, but they brought Dara out as their running partner before the Olympics. He's a former West Cork Youth Sports Star winner. But the last couple of years, I've lost count of how many national records and PBs he set. Even in the last 6 weeks, he became the first Irish teenager to run under 14 minutes for the 5,000 metres. Then he set a new Irish national 3,000 metre junior record. He's in phenomenal form at the moment, and he's heading out to the European Under-20 Championships.
Just before you throw to the interview, I just want to make reference to the level of tactical insight he speaks to you with is incredible for a man of his age. So for those listeners out there who might not think too much about the nitty gritty of middle distance running, and for them it's just a race on a track, just listen to the way Dara talks about the tactical side of the game. It's so interesting.
He's such an intelligent young man when it comes to speaking about athletics. You could actually listen to him all day. Like he's depth of knowledge.
His enthusiasm is infectious. I noted when I was listening to him. Really, really interesting.
Like his depth of knowledge is incredible, and he's like I said, he's a super talented young athlete, and we're definitely going to hear a lot more about him in the months and years to come. But hopefully we'll be seeing a lot of headlines about him in the next week or so, because Dara is flying out to Sweden next week for the European Under-20 Championships, where he races in the 5,000 metres. He's heading into these championships, like you said earlier, Jack, as the top ranked European at both the 5,000 metres and the 3,000 metres. So he's a real live medal contender, which is fantastic. A young fella from Glengarriff who could hopefully win a medal at European level. So Dara popped into the studio, so you can listen here to what he said. We're delighted to be joined by Dara McElhenney from Bantry Athletic Club before he jets out to the European Under-20 Championships in Sweden next week. Dara's one of the top young middle distance athletes in the country right now, and currently he tops the European Under-20 rankings over both the 3,000 metres and the 5,000 metres, and he's coming off the back of a very impressive run of form that includes a lot of national records and a fair few PBs. So the European Under-20s in Sweden next week, Dara, they've been your target for a long time. Can you tell me why they're so important to you and why you feel you are in contention?
I suppose like the main reason they would have been a target for so long was that I would have identified like when I feel that I would have been in the shape to actually, put a stamp on the championships. And so like 2 years ago now, when I was an under-18, my championships was the European Under-20s. And then last year as an under-19, my championships was the World Under-20s. So I feel like I've always kind of been reaching a bit, like there's always been some kind of, like obviously I was only 16 when I was there 2 years ago, and then last year I was 17, but it was all the world. And whereas this year I feel I'm going in, like I'm primed, I've been to 2 major championships on the track already, and then I've been to 3 major championships over cross country. Like I feel I have a lot of experience overall, like about all the major championships, because like the thing is you try and treat them just as a race, but like they are very different, just the whole, like you're there for a few days before it, and you could be like in the same hotel as your biggest competitor. You go down and get your breakfast and you're sitting across from him, and like it's actually as much a mental thing as anything. You need to be prepared for that as well. And I think like obviously my first few championships would have kind of taken me by surprise a bit, and like I look back on all those now, and there's actually probably a certain thing I've learned from all of them. So I suppose I'm just hoping now I can take everything I've learned and just mesh it all together for this one and try and just come out with a positive result. So yeah, and obviously being my last year junior, I feel like, and like I've had a good year so far, but I feel like to put a real stamp on my junior career, like I need a medal, like and I want a medal just to really kind of solidify my place as like one of the top juniors or whatever. So yeah, hopefully now we can come up trumps in 2 weeks' time. But
because you must be happy with your form right now. I had to write it down because I wouldn't remember the times or so on. But you were the first Irish teenager ever to run under 40 minutes for 5,000 metres. I think you ran 13:54.10 in Belgium at an IFAM meet. And then you broke the Irish junior record at the British Milers Club meeting in Watford. You ran 8 minutes 1.48 seconds, and you took 3 seconds off the previous national record and 12 seconds off your own PB. And that's only in the last, you could say, 6-7 weeks alone. Ahead of those races, had you seen the kind of signs in training that you were on the brink of something like that those national records were coming?
Yeah, I think like in a sense, yeah. I think a lot of those things I actually feel last year especially would have been a year that I kind of felt like I didn't do myself justice at all. So like I am extremely lucky. Like what a lot of it comes down to is that I basically have not missed a day of scheduled training in 3 years, like, because I've been healthy, and that does make a big difference, you know. So like, you know, like the odd day like here and there for a bit of a head cold would literally be as much as I've been kind of kept out of training. And I think like when you do kind of layer the training on block after block like that, it does make a big difference, and you do kind of get rewarded for your consistency. But yeah, I think like especially kind of around the time of in April, me and the rest of my group, we all went out to a training camp in Portugal, and I think like we all kind of knew that there was going to be good results from the whole group that like in the coming summer or whatever. But I suppose like we didn't know exactly what we were going to run, but in fairness, like we had like, you know, massive faith in us by our coach, and like Dave for me now. I remember before Belgium when I did run 13:54, he told me that he would have been disgusted if I was only going in there to try and break 14 minutes. Yeah. And like at the time, breaking 14 minutes for me would have been the absolute dream, you know, because obviously like no teenager had done it before and all this, and I was like, it would be unbelievable, and it'd be the pinnacle of my career. And he told me he'd be disgusted if I tried to go out there and run 13:59, like. And I suppose that kind of took me by surprise, because obviously, you know, in your own head sometimes you'd be like something in training might kind of click, and you might think, geez, maybe I actually am in like 13:50 shape. But until you hear it from your coach, like, who has, you know, more experience, more knowledge than you have, and when he says it, then it really does kind of like it does put it into perspective, and it gives you the belief to go and get it. And I suppose that really is one thing I have learned this year, is that every race is very like, I mean, like before now I would have gone into a race and I would have known everybody's PBs, and I would have known like where I should come, and I never really would have had the belief or the confidence to try and break through that, you know. Whereas like now, like even last week in Watford and stuff, like I think I was ranked probably like 5th in that race, but like I was going in there and I was trying to win it, and there was no two ways about it, you know. And I wanted to break 8 minutes, and I wanted to get down as close to it as I could or whatever. And I think things like that, like I've kind of just learned to appreciate that every race is a different day. And I mean, if you put yourself in the position early on, you might get rewarded for it in the last kilometre and you feel good, or else you might pay for it. But either way, at least then you'll have no regrets, like, you know. So I have come at it with a much more, I think I've been more relaxed as well in my races, which has made a big difference. I've been more relaxed kind of in my training and in my race. I've tried to just take the pressure off myself a bit, and just go in there and just kind of enjoy the races and stuff. And that, I think that actually has been quite evident even with the way I've ran them. You know, all my races have actually been entertaining, like good races to watch back afterwards and stuff, rather than kind of just trying to hang on. And so like it has been great, and the training definitely has been brilliant as well. Like obviously then we were in Portugal 4 weeks before Belgium, and then we went to Belgium. There was 4 of us racing. It was 4 PBs, and you know, it was that kind of, I suppose especially that was our first big race of the season, so that kind of set us up then as well, you know. And then to be honest, like there was no limit really after that. Like one of the lads in my group, like his PB before was 14:29, and he came out and he ran 14:04. And
that's some jump.
And that PB he ran was actually in February as well. So in the space of 3 months, he was taking 25 seconds. So I suppose when I'm training day in, day out with him and all the lads, and like the rest of the lads ran PBs as well, and that would have said for me that, you know, who's to say now in my 3K obviously it was 8:13, like who's to say I'm not going to break 8 minutes, and you know, for 1500, who's to say I'm not going to run? Do you know, like there was just no limits, and we went into it fearless, which was brilliant. Like, and how much does confidence play part in all this? Because like you said, you've taken huge chunks off your PBs. It's not 1 or 2 seconds. You've taken 15, 16 seconds, 12 seconds here. Like you said, you just talked there about kind of even taking a lot more time off the PBs you set. How much does confidence play a role for you? Oh yeah, like the confidence is huge, and I think like one thing I've learned about confidence is that I can't control it. Do you know what I mean? There's no, I mean, like I have had probably last summer, I think, I suppose like basically what I'm trying to say is that the confidence will come from your racing and your training, you know. Like for me last year now, like I would have felt confident enough going into a few races just from training, and then I'd have a stinker of a race, and then I just can't get myself confident for the next race. I just need to nearly not fluke a good race, but I need to just somehow have a good race to get my confidence back. So this year, like I wouldn't really say I've had a bad race since last summer, really. You know, I've been like generally happy with all my races. Obviously there was 1 or 2 I would have liked to do a little bit better in, but overall they have all been good races. So I mean, in a sense it would nearly be impossible not to have good confidence at the moment, you know. And obviously, as I said about the training, like I haven't haven't missed a day now in 2019 either. Obviously, like I've taken rest days, but I mean scheduled days of training. Which I mean, like, you know, if you're looking for confidence, that's where you're going to get it, you know, from your training and your racing. So yeah, like confidence is huge, like, and it does allow you to attack the bigger times and not kind of be afraid of them as well, like. Because
like we got news fact that you're only 18, you know, but you seem to have been on the scene for years and years and years, even going back to 2016 when you went out to Rio with Art Lanigan O'Keefe and Natalie Kyle as a training partner before the Olympics. So you've been on the radar for a long time, and of course too, Darragh, you're a former West Cork Youth Sports Star overall winner. When you see the likes of Rob Heffernan on Twitter this week calling you an old school warrior and saying that you're going all the way to the top, that's after you ran in the 800 metres at the under 20 and under 23 national championships. 2 questions. So what's it like to hear words like that from an Olympian like Rob, and why did you drop down to the 800 metres?
It is great to hear stuff like that from Rob. Rob is great. Like, I think like one of the best things about Rob is that obviously like he's achieved so much, and he's actually achieved so much more than people who nearly try to portray themselves as like Rob's very down to earth, like, do you know what I mean? Like, you pass Rob in the street and you talk to him, like, and sometimes you, like, for me anyway, like sometimes I nearly forget like how good he was, because like we'd just be talking and just having a crack or whatever, and I'd actually forget like this fella's actually a world champion, Olympic medalist, you know. So that's the thing about Rob, is that he's so like, he's very, and he actually would be quite involved in terms of like, you know, after a race, like I'd always have a text from him, and obviously like 2 years ago, 2 years ago in 2017, I actually went on a training camp with him as well for 9 days. And I think like whenever you see somebody at that level, when you see their hard work firsthand, I mean, obviously you can hear about it or whatever, but when you're actually there and you see it, I mean, like, he'd be a real source of inspiration for me. And then so obviously for him to go on Twitter and say stuff like that about me is nice and stuff. So it is great with Rob. Like, he's very approachable person as well, you know. Like, if I had a query, like I'd never stutter to go to him, and like it is great. And then obviously you mentioned the 800 as well. I suppose I wanted to just put a bit of speed in the legs, you know, because I suppose the thing is with championship racing, like as you would have mentioned, I have the fastest 5,000 metre in the field now in 2 weeks' time, but the race might jog around for the first 4 kilometres and might be a 1 kilometre burn up, you know. So one thing really that I've tried to concentrate on this year was to make sure that I'm kind of ready. I'm ready on all bases. So I actually have, like, it's been brilliant, like, because I think in the race itself I achieved fastest 1,500, 3,000 and 5,000. So I'd like to think that no matter what way the race goes, I'll be somewhat ready for it, you know. Like, there's no hope that like there'll be no curveballs or things I'm not prepared for. And I suppose the 800 was just another kind of tune up for that, you know. I was able to go up to Tullamore or whatever and just get a good hard, like, fast run, and shock the legs a bit, and it was good. Like, it was something different, and I came over the line and it was the first time my legs had felt that kind of, you know, the lactic acid and everything in a long time, really. Like, so it was actually great, and we were able to get a good training day out of it as well after, because you recover quite well, like quite quickly from 800 as well. So I was able to go and do a few kind of a bit of an interval session afterwards, and I felt like, you know, like, cause obviously you get fitter from your training, but you do actually get certain kicks from your races as well. So I feel like because that was a different stimulus and we were able to do a bit of training afterwards, like, I bet you would have got a bit of a kick on after that race as well. So
tactics wise, so talk me through 5,000 metres, kind of like for us on the outside, we don't kind of probably understand and realise how much is going on within the race itself, you know. Kind of how much do tactics play a role? Will some fellas purposely slow down the race to kind of save it for the end, or and what type of race do you like then? Do you like to lead from the front, or do you like to sit back, or
so basically, like, what I've tried to, like, mold myself, I've molded myself into an athlete that basically just reacts to whatever. So because it's much easier on me knowing that I'm going into a race, I don't really have to make any decisions, so I'll just react, especially like if I'm going into a race and I'm trying to win it. If it's that standard of race, I'll usually like kind of slot into about 3rd or 4th, or even 5th or 6th. Once you're in like the top kind of like 6 or 8 people, and you can kind of see what's going on ahead of you, because like all these people now will be coming into this race with completely different, like, everybody's a different profile of an athlete, you know. So I know, like, there's one lad now who would have a good 5,000 metre PB, but his 1,500 metre PB isn't good, so he won't want it to jog around and have a 1k burn up at the end. And then like there would be lads then as well who their 5,000 metre is obviously good, but they would be very much in favour of that. Like, so I suppose it depends. Like typically what would happen is that, like, I mean, most of the lads going into this race now would have PBs in around 14 minutes, But we could be on 15-minute pace for the first 3k, because obviously if there's any bit of wind as well, like nobody wants to go to the front, like, you know, nobody wants to take it, everybody wants to sit in. So generally when everybody wants to sit in, everybody slows down, and it can jog. Like you could go around, you could be absolutely jogging for some of it, and then it can just pick up. But I suppose, like for me, like as I was saying, like what I have really tried to do is that not to be too reliant on a certain type of race, because I'd hate to go into a race if I wanted a slow race and, you know, the first 2k was fast, you know, like, you know, you can imagine what that would do for your head, like, you know, you'd be panicking. So that is why I've kind of tried to develop like my 1500 and my 3000 as much as I can, which allows me then that if it is slow and it is a 1k burn up, that I'd be confident of that. But at the same time I have to fast a 5000 meter PB, so I wouldn't feel like anybody's going to run away from me in the early stages either, you know. So for me, like I'll go in there and I'll basically try and just react to whatever, and then like typically what would happen would be that it will go through slow enough through 3k, and then people will start to get cold feet and they'll get faster and faster, and then it might come down to the last lap and there's only 2 or 3 people left, and then it's just a burn up for the line really. So like to be honest, I'll be happy enough to react to whatever type of race comes up in Europeans, and just I suppose a lot about it, like the main thing that I would, even if anybody is trying to run a 5k or any tips or anything, would be for me is that like you don't want to make too many surges. So that'd be one thing that I would find, is that if it's a race that, especially a tactical race now where you know the last lap is going to be probably the fastest lap, like if you're after making a couple of surges after, let's say 2 kilometers to move from the back, and you kind of sprint to the front and then it speeds up again, you sprint, and like every time you kind of make a surge, like you're kind of zapping your legs a bit. So like for me, I try and, if I lock into a pace, if I'm running at a certain pace and it means I go back from 4th back to 6th, I'll do that just to make sure that the legs don't surge, and then any bit of zap in the legs is used over the last lap, and then you can, like, that's how I would conserve my energy the best, and then be able to have the most in the last lap, like. So
what is that last lap? Because like especially in those 3,000, 5,000, even 10,000 sometimes, the kick by the athletes in that last lap is incredible, to kind of summon that energy and reserves, you know, to go. Like, what's it actually like in, like, to run even a 60 second, under 60 seconds for the last lap after putting yourself through 4,600 meters first and then finding that energy? What's that feeling like to kind of, is it an adrenaline rush? Are you actually thinking, is it muscle memory, or what's it like to, when you actually kick into top gear?
Yeah, no, it is definitely, like, a lot of it is adrenaline, because sometimes you don't actually feel it until afterwards, you know, like it would have happened to me before now, that like I'd feel like, oh, I actually felt good in that last lap, and then like 10 minutes later, like your legs are burning, and like you don't realise what you're kind of doing to yourself. But I suppose if you're kind of going like purely for the win, like what I would try and do is always trying to get onto the inside rail, and because like I'd have trust in my kind of last 150 meter kind of speed or whatever. So like what I would often try and do is get onto the inside rail and basically just react to whatever is going on behind me. So if somebody comes up onto my shoulder, I'll just match their pace. I won't try and go faster or slower, I'll just match it, and then over the last 100 then just go as fast as you can. But I suppose every race is different as well, you know, like it could happen that with a kilometre or with a lap to go, somebody just makes a ridiculous surge and goes into the front, and then I'll just be tracking them and just trying to, I suppose a lot of it is that you want to be making sure you're running fast, but you always want to have an extra gear in the last 100, because a lot is actually lost and won in the last 100 metres, you know. You could be flying it and then like 2 or 3 lads could come by you and next thing medal's gone. Do you know what I mean? Like it happens, like, and it's happened to me before. I've been leading a race from gun to tape, and in the last 20 metres you could be passed out, and I mean that's just the way it is, like. So obviously like the last lap is as much hard work, it is quite tactical as well, because as I say, you don't really want to make too many surges. I prefer to pick a pace at 400 to go and hold that until 100 to go, rather than kind of going fast and slow, and because then like your legs are just a bit zapped, like, you know. So like it is tactical, because you want to conserve your energy as much as you can, but at the same time you are trying to drop the lads that are behind you, so it's tough, I suppose. But
it's time to make me feel very, very bad and inadequate here. Talk me through a normal training week for you, what you'd actually go through, kind of.
So I suppose like on a full training week now, where I wouldn't have a race, or I might have like a couple of weeks until a race and I can kind of afford to train hard. So on a Monday I do my long run, so I'd probably do about 16 miles on a Monday, and then Tuesday I double on a Tuesday, so I might do like 6 miles in the morning and 6 miles in the evening, and then Wednesday morning I might do just like 3 miles really slow, just to shake out the legs, and I'll do a session in the evening. So like the session could be anything from it could be 6 by 1 mile repeats, or like 10 by 1k repeats, or anything. It could be literally, there's a big variety. And then Thursday would be the same as Tuesday. I do 6 in the morning and 6 in the evening. and then Friday would be basically the same as well, 6 in the morning, 6 in the evening. Like that could be 8 and 4 or 7 and 5 or whatever, but it's just kind of getting out easy, running twice a day. And then Saturday would be another session. Like typically, like for us, especially when I was doing school and stuff, my Wednesday session would be more kind of like just strength based. It'd be at home, so I might do something like, it could be something like a 5 mile tempo, which would be like I'd be doing my tempos maybe like 5:10 a mile pace or 5:05. So I do that, and then on the Saturday I go to the track, and then we do kind of more specific stuff. So like a good session, and it's quite a good one to kind of get you ready for a race. Would be like a cut down session. So you might do like a mile, 1200, 800, 400, 1200, 800, 400, 200, and it gets your legs going at all the different speeds, and at the same time you're getting good volume in it as well. And then Sunday be my rest day. So I don't run on a Sunday.
I think you need a rest after all that, to be honest. And you kind of mentioned school there as well. Like we can't forget you just sat your leaving cert over in Bantry there in just last month in June. So how did you juggle training for, like you've had all these big events and the European Under-20s coming up? How did you juggle training and studying for the leaving cert?
I suppose it did propose its challenges, but I think I was happy with how I managed it overall. Obviously, I think like at the start of the year, had I decided that school was going to be a bigger priority than running was, I would have given it more time. But I gave it the time I felt I needed to give it, But I was fortunate as well that at the start of the year, like I took a lot of stress off myself by just I picked a course that I wanted to do or whatever. It was history and politics in UCD, and like it's 301 points. Yeah. So like I would have been confident enough of getting that, and at the same time it allowed me to like even things like like the Belgium meet, like that was 9 days before my leaving cert, but at least I was able to go out there and I didn't feel too guilty about not studying or I wasn't too stressed about not studying, because I felt like I'd kind of pick something that was sustainable while still training like full time or whatever, because you do have people like who kind of give running the back seat during their leaving cert and stuff, but I had no interest in it, like no interest in doing that. Like,
you brought books out to Belgium, but they stayed in the bag.
Yeah, they stayed in the bag, right. There was a few times like that, even coming down from a race in Dublin or anything, I'd throw them out on the train and I'd have them up on the table, but it's tough enough to open the book and actually concentrate on anything when your mind's elsewhere, but at the same time, like I suppose Monday to Friday was where I would have done kind of most of my work. I would have tried to just have a decent enough routine going on, and I was fortunate as well. The school, fairness to school, were good to me. Like they would allow me to run during like religion and careers and PE and stuff like that, so I only actually ran after school I think twice a week, and then we have a half day on a Friday as well, so I had a good bit of time, so I suppose a lot of it is like time management. Like I'm not gonna try and preach that I'm like the best person in the world for time management, but it does help, to kind of have specific slots for the things you have to do. But I think like obviously I'm delighted now the leaving cert's over and all that, but at the same time I think it is kind of what you make it. Obviously it is really like they're big, massive, like they're huge exams and all that, but if you are going into it and you had a similar kind of approach to it as I did, that you want to do well but you're not going to maybe try and rinse every point out of it that you could, then it is very manageable to keep on doing like sport at a high level or anything really.
Before I finish up, I have to talk as well about you changed coaches last year. You went from Steve Macklin, who's gone over to Doha. You went to Dave McCarthy. How much of a change was that for you to change coaches? Because you've been with Steve for so long, so you switched to Dave. So how much of a change was that? And
yeah, like it was a big change, but I think at the same time it was actually a very smooth transition. So like Dave would have been like a fantastic runner back in his day. Like we're also chasing his PBs. He ran 13:42 for a 5k, and he's a 3:55 miler as well. So I suppose he has so much experience, but he actually tried, like in fairness, he like God only knows like the heights he would have got to, but he was very like injury prone. So he actually tried to make a comeback in 2016, or 2017 actually, and he joined our group. So he was training with Steve, but he was only back training I'd say 8 or 9 weeks, and there was another issue, and I think it was his Achilles, and he was out. So then like he would still always kind of be around the training group, the training and stuff like that. Like he'd be kind of observing, and he'd hop in for a few of like my reps or whatever, and so he was always around anyway, and we knew him very well. So then when he left, like I think, or when Steve left and Dave took over, I think like the main reason it was such a smooth transition was because we all went together, like so like everybody from my group was then being coached by Dave. So in a sense, not that much actually changed. Like we were still able to structure our week like the same way we would have, and we'd still meet we'd still meet at the track on a Saturday morning like we used to and stuff, and it was a smooth transition. But I suppose like Steve, like and as I say, like I have hardly missed a scheduled day of training in 3 years, and obviously Steve is to thank for that, like to a large part, because obviously like he would have managed my load perfectly, and he's kind of, I feel like he got me to a certain state where then when Dave took me over, Dave was able to use his experience as a championship runner, and like he has so many experiences. Like he has a European under-23 medal in 5k, and like obviously he ran 355 mile, and so he was able then to take my profile as an athlete who was conditioned and consistent, and he was able to tweak it and get me really race ready. And I think like nearly as like a combined force of the two, we've grown so much, like and obviously like one wouldn't have been able to work without the other. And I suppose the fact that Steve and Dave are actually quite good friends as well, there was never any like bad blood between or anything like that, you know. So
a kind of a smooth transition, so things
well, very smooth.
Kind of looking well into the future now, kind of what is the long-term goal? Like we're looking well past European under-20s and even next year and so on. Like I mentioned there, you got a taste of the Olympics back in 2016 when you went to Rio to help Arthur Lanigan O'Keefe and Natalie Coyle ahead of the pentathlon. Is that the big goal in the distance? Would you love to get to that level at some point?
Oh yeah, I think I suppose if you got any middle distance runner in here, they'd say the same thing, that it is the dream. But I suppose it is going to be a case of just like ultra consistency the whole way through, because I mean even now like I'm like aiming to win a medal at the European under-20s, but if you go back through the record books, like I mean I've no problem saying this, I'm very aware that there is a lot of people who've won under-20 medals and haven't been able to make it to the senior career or whatever, because like it is a step up. But I feel like I don't think that will happen to me. I think I do have the tools kind of needed or whatever to make the step up to senior. And then I mean obviously you'll be taking it 1 year at a time, but you'll be looking at 2024 and 2028, and you'll be, I suppose, like a couple of years out from them, you'll be thinking like, what do I have to do to get myself ready for those? I think definitely like I suppose 2028 would probably be more of an aim than 2024. I think if I did make it in 2024, I'd be going out there purely for the experience, because like I'd only be 23, and especially for a 5k, like an 800 meter runner might be near enough to their peak at 23, but for 5k I'd say between 27 and 30 is kind of, because obviously like your body is using all the miles you've ran in basically all your life, like. So I think if I did get out there as an under 23 or as a 23-year-old in 2024, I'd be going out there and I'd be trying to soak up the experience. I'd be trying to learn, and then if that were to be the case, I'd go back and I'd try and put down a real solid 4 years, and then use my experiences gained to try and go for, I'm not saying I'm going to go win the Olympics, but obviously to try and get a more like a better result, because I think like it has been shown that there is, obviously it is so hard, especially like in my event, like over 5,000 meters, it is dominated by the East Africans, you know, and it is, sometimes it can be a bit demoralizing, like, because you're watching the best Europeans in the world and like they're coming like 12th, and you're just like, do you know what is this like? But at the same time, in the Olympics in Rio, like Andrew Butchart, like he's as much a normal lad as you could get. He's Scottish, and I mean like there's nothing fancy about him. Like he's just a 5k runner, and like he came sixth. So
it shows it can be done. Yeah.
So, and I suppose like a lot of it is really like the path along the way as well. Like obviously I get such a buzz off running like national records over in Belgium, and I mean just because like I might not be looking to win an Olympic medal when I'm training, when I'm 23, there will still be so many big goals that I'll be looking to like if I can break 13:30 for a 5k, or I can go like sub 3:55 for the mile, and all these different things, like there's always going to be massive goals along the way. And I suppose the ultimate goal will always be the Olympics, but I suppose a big part of it is trying to just like take every moment as they come before, and kind of celebrate the small victories as well, because when you look back at it, I think a lot of them are actually kind of small victories. Like my coach would say that, he'd say like he ran 3:55 mile, and he was so like caught up about trying to make the Olympics and make the World Championships that he probably didn't even enjoy it. But like now that's what he tells people about. Do you know what I mean? So like
exactly,
so
you have to, even for you at the moment, everything is kind of building up. Like you said, this is your last year as a junior. It's kind of up to the under 20. It's up to the big bad world of under 23s and seniors after that. So it's kind of it's steps along the way, isn't it? It's kind of progression for you.
It is, yeah, and that's it's all you can do. Like, you know, all you can do is just try and keep getting better every year. And, you know, as I was mentioning to you there earlier, like I'm absolutely delighted with where I am as an athlete right now, but I'm well aware that 13:54 is nothing in the world of a senior, you know what I mean? So it's great to be at that stage as an 18-year-old or whatever, but like next year, like I want to be sub 13:50, maybe even sub 13:45. The year after that I want to be sub 13:40, and you know, I want to keep on progressing. And I suppose if you do keep on progressing, like, then you will get the results and you will get the rewards in terms of, you know, World Championships or Olympics or anything like that. But yeah, you need to just keep the ball rolling every year and try and just improve yourself every year, and hopefully it will, you know, by the time you get to 27 or 28, if you've improved every year, you should be in a fairly good space, like, so.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah. Darragh, thank you so much for coming to the studio to join us. Wish you the best of luck for the European under-20s in Sweden next week. No doubt we'll be seeing and hearing a lot about you in the weeks, months and years to come.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Thanks, Darragh.
Thank you for listening to the Star Sports Podcast. Don't forget to pick up this week's Southern Star, featuring our award-winning sports section that has everything a sports fan in West Cork could want. Available every Thursday in shops across West Cork and online from anywhere in the world. The Southern Star, #1 for sport in West Cork.
Welcome back to the Star Sport Podcast, and as always, when Cork are in action in the All-Ireland Championship, it's usually a busy week for Kieran and the Star Sport News team. So, Kieran, what can we expect in this week's paper?
Like we said there, Jack, it's kind of busy at the moment with the inter-county scene. So we have a big Cork v Dublin preview ahead of the Super 8's clash in Croke Park this weekend. We hear from Mark Collins, Kevin O'Driscoll, Rowan McCarthy and Brian Hurley about the big game this weekend. Plenty else going on as well. In Clonakilty on Friday night, the Cork under-20s are playing a Munster semi-final against Waterford. So huge occasion for Clonakilty GA Club, and we have an interview with their chairman, Darragh McElhenney, who speaks about, I suppose, the logistics of what goes on behind the scenes trying to organise a game like of such magnitude. The West Cork ladies got off to a great start in the senior championship last weekend. They beat Vels, I think it was 4-17 to 2 points, so really strong start. Interesting actually, Jack, interview with Timmy Harnedy. He's a former Skib Olympic rower, and he chats to us about the current competition for places in the Irish lightweight double that has seen the O'Donovan brothers of Gary and Paul split up, with Fintan McCarthy from the twins, Fintan and Jake, who we had in a couple of weeks ago. Fintan is now partnering Paul at this weekend's World Cup in Rotterdam. So Timmy is a man who knows his rowing inside out. So his insight into the competition for places between the four Skib men who are trying to get those 2 seats in that boat is quite interesting. So we've that and a lot more. It's an action-packed sports section this week, Jack.
Well, I look forward to reading it. And if you can't get to the shops to buy a physical copy of the Southern Star, which I would recommend that you do, but if you can't, you can always log on to www.southernstar.ie/e-paper, and you can subscribe to the digital edition for less than €2 per week.
Again, Jack, super value. Thanks for listening to this week's Star Sport Podcast. We'll be back at the same time next week. So if you enjoy these shows, please make sure to rate, review and subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Acast, Stitcher, or wherever else you listen to the show.
What a pro.
Got it in one.
Thank you for listening to the Star Sports Podcast. Don't forget to pick up this week's Southern Star, featuring our award-winning sports section that has everything a sports fan in West Cork could want. Available every Thursday in shops across West Cork and online from anywhere in the world. The Southern Star, #1 for sport in West Cork.